looking at the camera.
Hello, my name is George Demery. I am the Chief Executive Officer for St. Stephen Baptist Church and President of Real Results Consulting Solutions. And we're here because money matters. And we want to take somewhat of a deep dive into what you need to do during this financial crisis and going through COVID-19, as well as things that you can do when this crisis is over. And my co-host.
My name is Ivy Brito. I am a owner of State Farm Insurance. I help people manage risk of everyday life, recover from the unexpected, and realize their dreams. So I am here today with George, and we're going to help you to understand a little bit more about managing your money.
You know, it's about financial literacy. And when you and if you look up the term financial literacy, you get a ton of different definitions. But at the end of the day, it's making informed decisions with your money. How can you make your money work for you rather than you just work for your money? So we're going to come up with some things and some things. You may even have some questions down the road on how you can how this can help you moving forward and how you handle your money. One of the things that I've discovered over the years is that it's not your fault. If people don't know and share this information with you, you will not know what to do as it relates to your money. There's a ton of these things that I did not know 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I'm happy to know today.
Absolutely.
So, and we're going to take another thing we're going to do. We're going to take some time to talk about what to do with your income if you're doing well and you're able to pay your bills and things are going okay, and what you should do if you happen to be one of those millions of folks who have been laid off, furlough, or having tough times with their income. One of the things that I like to start with is what Dave Ramsey said, and I really like Dave Ramsey. He gives you a ton of principles that I believe that you can use. And he says, focus on the four walls. And those four walls being focused on food, utilities, shelter, and transportation. Make sure those are covered. But in order to do that, we want to also talk about how you budget. Now, how would you do that? Share with them how you would make budget.
I'm glad you asked. And as a matter of fact, Dave Ramsey is one of the reasons why I do what I do today. I happened to find his show during my commute back and forth to work, and I started listening. And so now with my policyholders, one of the things that I do when I talk about budget is I gotta go back to the fundamentals. You know, if you look at I'm a sports enthusiast, and so there's some fundamental things that golfers, I know you're a golfer. There are some fundamental things with your swing that you have to do. If you play basketball like my sons, there's some fundamental ways that some fundamental things you have to learn. So let's take a deep dive into the budget world.
Please.
And the first thing that you have to do is change your mindset. You have got to change the way that you think about money. So what do I mean by that? You got to look at it differently. You got to look at, when you think about wants versus needs and your mindset before this COVID thing, because this has not only affected everybody physically, but it's affected us financially. So before COVID, a lot of people probably spent money on things that they wanted, but not what they needed.
You'd be surprised on what you spend money on that you didn't realize you spent money on it until you went back and did some research.
Absolutely, absolutely. I found out when I got laid off years and years and years ago, and I had to make my money stretch, I was spending a lot of money on things that I didn't even need, and I didn't miss it when I wasn't able to get it. So that helped me to change my mindset. The other thing that you have to do, in addition to changing the way you think about money, is now you got to change your behavior. So that means you got to do things differently. You got to act differently. And you have to think about, you got to learn and educate. So if you wanted to learn about money, and you wanted to educate yourself, where would you go? Where do you go right now when you want to do that?
Well, I really go online.
Okay.
You know, I go online. You'd be surprised what you can find just on your mobile device. You know.
Oh, absolutely.
Any information that you need to take a deep dive in, ask. Information is right at hand. Or, I have a financial planner. that I happen to have. So I bounce ideas off of him. Another thing that have done in the past is I look at other successful people.
Okay.
And and say, well, what do they do? What have they done? And you'd be surprised. One thing I've learned about successful folks is they like talking about themselves.
And that's who you want to learn from. Never
Right.
take financial advice from a broke person.
No,
So,
no.
so now I'm a reader, so I love to do some online things, but I bought this magazine. This sits in my lobby, and this is just one, but it's Kiplinger's. Every month, there's a wealth of information in here. So if you're not an online person, I know we have a lot of listeners that might not have the technical skills
I agree. I do a lot of reading as well.
to delve into the podcast world. I love podcasts too. So Kiplinger's is one of my favorite magazines, but I also, now this I do get online, is Black Enterprise magazine. That's another magazine that's very helpful, and it takes you into the deep dive of spending money and changing the way that you think about money. So change your mindset, change your behavior and your spending habits. Right now, you have to, George talked about those 4 walls. You got to think about those are needs versus the wants. And so
And
that's key.
Yeah, and I agree. I should have said, because I read all the time as well. Be a reader. Look for information. That information is out there, and it can help. I hope what we're doing here will motivate you to take a more of an active role into what you do with your finances moving forward.
Absolutely.
As you said, and I said earlier, food is a necessity. You've got to budget for that. Utilities, shelter, things like that you got to do. What we're also going to suggest is that you stay very proactive with all your creditors. There are most every credit card company, most every insurance agency, even a ton of utilities, even your cell phone companies, now have come up with things that can help you to get past these 2 months. Would you like to share some of those?
I can give you, because I work for State Farm, I can give you our example and let you know that all auto insurance companies are making accommodations for your insurance bills. They're different from company to company. What I don't want you to do is sit there and suffer in silence. If you can't pay your bills, don't just sit at home and suffer in silence. You have to be proactive in contacting them. So what they are doing, because of the shelter in place, and because there are fewer drivers on the road, there are fewer accidents. So they are giving money back to customers, some in the form of a check, some in the form of a dividend, some in the form of credits on their policy. We are also not canceling any policies for non-payment of premium. So that's just insurance companies. If you think about the mortgage companies, some mortgage companies are waiving your mortgage. This is important. Some of them are waiving your mortgage. Some of them are postponing your mortgage.
That's a difference.
You need to make sure you understand the difference. The last thing, if they are postponing your mortgage for 3 months, in month 4, when you start back to work, you still have to pay those 3 months.
Yeah, you owe 4 months.
If they're waiving it, that means they don't charge you at all. So you need to make sure you understand the difference. So to George's point, you need to reach out to your utility company. They're not, as far as I know, if I understand correctly, LG&E is not disconnecting any service due to non-payment. You need to reach out to your cell phone companies. Any creditors that you owe, like George said, call them if you have not already talked to them, because they do have accommodations for this period of shelter in place.
You can help to control the narrative by being proactive. If you go, and I've always said many, many times, sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Get on the phone, ask good questions. Say, this is where I am.
Absolutely.
How can you help me? Suggest what happens in 2 months, what happens in 3 months. There's no way, don't have them to postpone any mortgage. See if they can put those 3 months at the end of the term. That will help. You can also do that with your auto payment. You got to transportation is one of those four walls
Absolutely.
that you've got to protect. Call them. If you have a 48-month loan and you owe 30 months, talk to them about making it 30, adding 3 months on the back so you can pick up rather than you needing to pay extra payments when we get to the end of this and you get back to work. Because think about it, the income that you're going to receive when you get back to your place of employment is going to be where it was 3 months ago, and that will put you further behind.
So on that note, that's a good segue, because one of the other things, I told you I was going to take a deep dive into how to help you manage your money. Number 3 on my list is developing a spending plan. Some people call it a budget, but I don't like that word. I like a spending plan.
I call it budget, but she can call it what she wants to.
You got the main thing is you
know?
have to know where your money is going every month. So take a piece of paper. If you like Excel, again, if you're not that technical type person, a white piece of paper is just as fine. Write down your income at the top of the page. If you get paid twice, check number 1, this is how much I get, take home pay. Check number 2, this is how much I get. Down the side of that page, I need you to write all of your bills, whether it is groceries, getting your hair done, going to play golf, whatever it is, I need you to write all those. Don't forget about food and clothing, and spend that money on paper first.
Right. It's very, very important, guys, that you, as Ivy said, that you know where your money is going. Give an example. I worked in radio for a number of years as a director of sales for almost 30 years, over 30 years in my career. And when I decided that I was going to give it up, I was wondering, I said, where's my money going? Where do I really spend my money? You know? So once you really, again, take a deep dive into things that you purchase, and I had an oh my moment, you know?
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of things that I discovered that I really didn't need, that frankly I could do without. Now, so look, write it down. Another thing that I'm going to suggest, if at all possible, continue to make your mortgage payment.
Yes, absolutely.
If at all possible, don't take a furlough from the mortgage payment if you got your money to do it.
Another thing too, student loans. So student loans, I have a college grad. I have 2 college grads. The student loan, the government is suspending payments until the end of September. They're not charging any interest.
Okay.
But I told my son, if you can pay it, you need to pay it.
There is nothing in money other than having a stack of money in front of you more important than your credit.
Borrow is a slave to the lender.
Nothing more important. We're going to spend some time on that in weeks to come. But remember, those who pay their bills on time don't need to pay as much for money. All credit is risk management.
So, and we're going to talk about that in our next segment, because we can spend 2 hours, I think, talking about credit.
On risk, on credit and
so
credit
we're going to go get a deep dive into that at the next segment. So we're changing our mindset, the way we think about money, right?
And one of the ways we can change, did we talk about a part-time job?
We did not talk about that yet. That's the behavior. That fits under category number 2.
Right.
So
look for a part-time job. And when I say part-time job, I just don't mean a job that's under 40 hours a week. A part-time job is just part-time, just until you can get back to your full-time job. There are a ton of things, if you go online, that people are hiring, that you can still stay socially distant. You can stay safe and still go to work and make a few dollars.
But George, I just don't like doing that kind of work.
That's about changing your behavior. You got to change your mindset, you know?
It's only temporary.
Remember, one day tough times will come to a close, but tough people will survive.
Absolutely.
You be one of those tough people. that on occasion, and think about the times in your life when you had to do things you didn't really want to do, but you didn't because it was the right thing to do. And it's just another hurdle that God put in front of you that you know you can get over, knowing that you've gotten over a ton of hurdles before today.
Absolutely. I think when you look at your circumstances and you put pride aside, sometimes you have to put pride aside in order to feed your family
Pride aside.
or to get out of debt. And I learned that when my dad died when I was 12. And my mom had 4 teenagers.
Wow.
No, they weren't all teenagers. 15, 14, 12, and 8. And our lifestyle changed. We were fine, but without his income in the household, the lifestyle changed. And it was at that moment that I decided that I was going to become more financially smart and intuitive so that I did not get in that predicament. So, you know, it doesn't matter to me what I need to do to make sure that the income needs are met. So whatever that part-time job is, sometimes
you're going to do it.
put that pride aside.
I've said it. I've said it the same thing in a different way. Never allow your ego to get in the way of your good common sense.
Oh, I like it.
Never do it. You know.
I like it.
If that's what you got to do, we're going to do what we needed. The church has had to do what we needed to do to get past this period. Think about all the things that have changed. A lot of the things that have changed have been good because we look for different ways of getting things done. Who knows? Maybe that part-time job could be that extra income that you need going forward to buy that extra thing that you didn't think you could afford before then.
Absolutely.
So there could be some positives after that.
It's multiple streams of income. And so, you know, if that part-time might become your new passion, you just never know what God has in store for you
don't.
During this time. Look at all the businesses that have started or the people that are making masks now. Look at all that. That's a unique thing that has come out of this. And so I like the part-time work thing.
But we're also going to talk about what not to do. And we have a major what not. And I want to hand that over to you because you have one of those folks who has a business close to where your business is located.
He's talking about the payday loans. So COVID, again, we are in a situation, people are making financial decisions now. They're making short-term decisions. And some of those short-term decisions are made as a result of not being able to manage your money. And sometimes when we make short-term decisions, they're not always the right decision. We make them out of desperation and out of lack of planning. So next to my office, near my office are multiple, unfortunately, in this area.
In our neighborhood.
My office is in Shively. In our neighborhoods, they are plentiful.
Because they prey on people who are economically challenged.
And let me tell you this, they are busy. The traffic flow is greater now. I can see it from my window. The traffic flow is greater now than I've ever seen it before. And that makes me nervous because the interest rates are exorbitant.
Well, I did some research on it last night. And I was thinking, well, predatory lending, but what are the interest rates? For an APR, for folks who borrow money for 2 weeks, the interest rate is 391%. That's an APR. That's if it's done over a year. If you have not paid that in the first 2 weeks, on an average, that's not for all, this is an average number, it goes to 521%. So you get on this ride, this Ferris wheel that you go around over and over again, but guess what? You can never get off. It never stops. Don't panic. Now, it's easy for me to say that sitting here, talking here in St. Stephen Baptist Church about not panicking, but when you panic, you make bad decisions.
Right.
Think about it. Look for other resources. Get on the phone. Call people because there are folks that can get you through a short-term situation. One
of the things, and we're going to talk about life insurance in another segment, But if you have some cash value life insurance that builds cash, I just helped a client the other day. He didn't know it was in there, but I was able to give him a check so that he could pay some bills. So cash value life insurance, if you've had it for a while, maybe another resource where you can get some available cash. It's not a loan that you have to pay back to anyone else other than yourself, but it's another source of income that just might be there. So if you do have it, again, be proactive.
Yes.
Call your resources, call your insurance agent, and talk to them. Go over your coverages. There may be some things on your policies that can help you save a little bit of money in the interim. But the payday loan,
Payday
please
loan,
be careful.
If all the information that we're sharing, we feel is valuable information for you to move forward in times of good and bad times. These are principles you can use all the time. But if there's one thing that we want you to take away from this, if I could say number one, that's the number one thing. Shy away from folks who want to make you pay too much for their money. It's a cost. When people are extending credit, there's a cost to you for doing that.
Right.
For an example, and we're going to get into this in time to come too. The average credit card interest for new credit cards is 19%. For those who have really, really good credit, the average interest rate is 14%. That's the average interest rate. For those who don't, it could be as much as 25 to 30%. Though that's another reason you need to get on the phone with your credit card companies. Another thing they'll do, if you don't watch it and you don't talk to them, they will put fees on there from anywhere from $25 to $45 per fee, and some companies will raise your interest rate just because you were late, which makes it really difficult for you to pay that credit card off. We're going to spend some time on that on weeks to come too.
So everything that George is talking about, I can fold back into these fundamentals. Changing your behavior. You have to learn, when we talk about reading magazines like Kiplinger and looking at shows like Dave Ramsey, all of these principles that we're talking about today, at some point in time, are featured on these shows in these magazines. You have to educate yourself. That's one of the core values that I live by, is education. And so these things that we're talking about that may seem foreign to you, I will help you. George will help you. You can reach out to St. Stephen and they know how to contact us. I will help you get more in depth into the spending plans and what kind of resources. Maybe we can put something online about what financial resources are out there so that they can look. The other thing that is important to me in terms of managing your money is getting organized with your bills. So when your bills come in, George, where do they go?
I have a tray that sits on a counter, and everything that needs to be paid, my wife and I, we put in this tray.
Perfect.
What we've tried to do over the last number of years is the moment they come in, we pay them and get them off our plate. That way they don't sit there. If you have to wait on a pay period, let's suppose you get paid on the 1st and the 15th, make sure that maybe you can put a little note on your phone, any other ways that you could come up with to make sure you stay on top of that you make your payments on that day. A lot of times now, we don't really write checks like we used to.
No, we don't. I don't either.
No, we very seldom do we write checks. So most of the bills that we pay now, we get a credit card bill. Frankly, we don't have very many. We know the value of not being in debt. Do not be a slave to debt. So when we do use a credit card, we bring it in, we try our best to pay it off within that period, and when that happens, guess what, guys? You pay no interest at all.
Right. So he said a key thing. I asked him that intentional question because I wanted to know where he put his bills, because When people don't manage their money well, one of the key things is they don't have any organization when the bills come in. The LG&E bill is over here on the counter, the credit card bill is over here on the dresser, and then you got another bill here. This is what I use. This is I'm a little more detailed A-type person now.
She like my wife. She like Yolanda.
So
Yolanda
So
she's
they
the
go
most
in
detailed
here.
person I know.
they go in here.
You know?
And when I get paid, I pick this up. Now I do mine a little bit differently because I pay every bill that is due before my next paycheck.
Oh, okay.
So I know everything is paid. Whatever's left over, I got to make it work till the next paycheck. So, but the thing is, we both have a system.
We do.
You have to have a system. If you don't have a system, if you don't have I don't care if it's just a folder like this. When your bills come in, they need to all be in one place. And when you get ready to pay them, there's none that get lost.
And if it's two of you guys in the house, I know there's a lot of houses, the one-parent homes, we got that. But if there's two people, you got to make sure that you're both on the same page.
Absolutely.
You've got to communicate. Again, I was joking about my wife, Yolanda, but I'm serious. She is the most organized person I know. So there's no way I could be unorganized when it comes to bills because that's just what she does.
You got to have a system. I don't care what it is, but you got to have a system.
So I know that it's done.
Yep,
you know?
absolutely. Yep. So that's one last thing. I don't know how much time we have left. We got a little bit of time.
Okay.
So we talked about everything. Now for me, most people's emergency fund does not exist. Or somebody said, my emergency fund will last me about 30 minutes. And they probably weren't kidding. So you have to start a savings plan. That's going to be hard to do right now if you're not working. But what I told my sons, I don't care if it's $10 a paycheck. You've got to get into the habit of putting something aside. If it's $5, what that does is that creates consistency, and that creates a habit. How many days does it take to form a habit? Is it 28?
I think it's 28. I know it's 20 something. But see, money grows exponentially, and most Americans don't feel bad, guys. Most Americans do not save.
They don't.
Most Americans, if they lost their job, could not make it over the next month. And
that's what we're finding out right now.
And that's why you see such long lines at folks that need assistance, is because, again, when I say most, I mean the great majority of Americans don't save. But let me tell you what I mean when I say money grows exponentially. It's like taking a penny and turning it over every day, where 1 cent, the next day is 2 cents, the next day is 4 cents, the next day is 8 cents, the next day is 16. That first week or two, you don't really see it. You say, well, it doesn't seem as though my money is growing. But when you get to week 3 and week 4, you understand how money grows. So even as you've said, even if you only save a wee bit, 10, 15 bucks a week or a month, do it consistently, put it away, because there will be a time when you're going to need that for a rainy day.
And we got a flood right now.
And we got a flood. So not only do we want to try to help you with your current situation, but we want to put you in a position that you can be better off for the next situation. One of the things that Reverend Cosby said last night, and I've used this quite a bit over my lifetime, is everybody is in one of three positions. Either you're doing really good and things are going well for you. Okay, that's good. Or you just got over a hill. You just figured it out. You know, you said, well, you know what? That was a tough hurdle, but I just got over that hurdle. And the next person is a hurdle's waiting on you. So plan it, don't panic, and I'm telling you, if you do some of these principles, it'll put you in a better position. It's all about a plan, and when you work that plan, you call your creditors, you set the narrative, you tell them what you can do. And one other thing before I forget, If they agree to it, get it in writing. Don't trust anybody with your money. Don't trust your credit card company. Don't trust that lady who represents that bank who's going to tell you what she's going to do, and all she's doing is trying to take care of her family as well as you are. If she agrees to it, make sure you get her name and she emails that agreement to you that you got it in writing. Because trust me, I've done it. I've done it with my cell phone provider. I won't mention the name of the company, but we'll get on the phone, we'll create, and they'll say one thing, this is what my bill's gonna look like. Mm-hmm. I get my bill the next month and it'll look like that. What the heck happened? I call back and they say, we don't even know anything about that conversation because they got thousands of employees.
Always get a name.
Get a name and get it. Text message, email, whatever you need to do, please get it in writing. I don't care what you do, not just this moving forward. Don't trust. And one other thing I want to add, because we're about to run out of time, is important. We're going to spend time on this credit rating thing.
We are.
We're going to spend time on that. We want you to know the value of a good number.
And I'm glad that you said it. Something just came to me in terms of preparation. You have, I don't know when we'll be back, if it's a week or not. Go to annualcreditreport.com and get your credit report. It would be great. It would be fantastic if you could have that in front of you when we get back together next week. Annualcreditreport.com. You can, there are 3 credit bureaus. There's Experian, there's Equifax, and there's TransUnion. Now, some people use Credit Karma. If that's, I mean, for what we're doing, that's fine too. But you get 1 free credit report from each of those credit bureaus once a year. So they didn't know they were getting homework.
Well, let me say this. I use Credit Karma.
Credit Karma, I think, now uses TransUnion.
No, they use TransUnion and what is it?
Equifax.
Equifax.
So they've changed a little bit.
They use them both, and it's free.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to pay for your credit score.
I don't know
report.
And the reason, because then I'll get an email that says, "Hey, you got a new credit number," and that will motivate me to go online and look. And if you hadn't made any major purchases, you paid all your bills on time, your credit number will not be affected too much month to month. But it's good to every now and then to know I know what my number is. Sharon Bell, who sits there, who's our engineer, I told her what my number is just recently, because we had this, we banter back and forth on that all the time. Isn't that right, Sharon?
So hold that thought.
Yep.
Get that credit report. I'm going to do a quick recap of what we talked about today to help you better manage your money. If I forget something, George, chime in.
No problem.
But you got to change your mindset. You got to change the way you think about money. You got to change your behavior. You got to change the way you spend money, wants versus needs, and get educated. Develop a spending plan or a budget so you can know where your money's going every month. Get organized, have a place, a central location where all your bills are, and start a savings plan. What did I miss?
Run away from payday loans.
Right. And call your creditors.
And call your creditors. Please call your creditors. Don't be that person when the phone rings and say, "Oh, is that a creditor?" No. Be that opposite person. You call that company. You call that bank. You tell them what your situation is, and you help them create the solution, not just them.
Absolutely.
You both are creating that solution.
I'm sure if you need more information, is it info@ssclive.org? They can get in touch with both George and I. And
I got one other thing that I like to add.
Okay.
I always want to end with a quote, and this is this week's quote. He who loses money loses much. He who loses a friend loses more. but he who loses faith loses all. Don't lose faith. We will get through that. That's from Eleanor Roosevelt during the Great Depression.
Together, but 6 feet apart.
Together, but it's, hey.
6 feet apart.
Yeah, we're not touching, trust me.
Yeah, we got our 2 arm lengths.
Yeah, we are. All right.
Thanks.
Rue.